Welcome. Now, lots changed over the last 2 decades in mobile IT, and so we've brought together our panel of experts to help give you a view on what the future holds. So let's get started with some introductions.
Hi, I'm Nick Miller. I'm EU Sales Strategy Manager.
Hi, Drew Braithwaite. I manage engineering for TOUGHBOOK.
John Tucker, Head of Engineering for TOUGHBOOK for Europe.
Hi, and I'm Thorsten Lutz, System Architect in the Go-to-Market team.
And I'm your host for today, Chris Turner, Head of Go-to-Market, TOUGHBOOK EU. Right, Nick, we always talk about the mobile market and how it moves so quickly, but tell us exactly what's changed in recent years.
Well, I think for our customers, they've always seen the users of our devices as mobile workers. But the big change that we've really seen over the last few years has been driven by the pandemic. Our customers have been in a situation where maybe their fixed or office-based staff have had to be mobilised quickly en masse. So that's kind of grown this mobility or mobile base. But we've still got this niche use case or a group of individuals that we would class as hypermobile.
Okay, John, so looking at the users specifically, what type of personas are we talking about?
Probably a good place to start is thinking about frontline workers. These are the people out in the field delivering frontline services. Emergency services is probably the best place to start. Police, fire, ambulance, utility workers, roadside rescue, logistics providers. Users that are in the field don't have easy access to power and have to rely on mobile connectivity. That's probably the starting point really for defining a hypermobile worker.
So mobile deployments, typically quite challenging.
I think every hypermobile user is different. You've got situations where you've got different age profile, different location, different environment, different geography. And that means that their IT needs differ.
And that can be tricky to meet all of those, I guess. I think connectivity springs to mind, long battery life, having a device that is able to withstand those certain environments, conditions.
What about the user? Have we seen any changes in the way that our customers evaluate the user's feedback?
Well, I guess that's a term what we name as a consumer behavior. So the consumers are more mobile today, and they expect similar behavior of their work equipment as they have it in their private life. And I guess that's the challenge, is to get the same performance in the work environment like they have on the home environment, but now mobilized.
And that's really interesting, Thorsten. That's back to when I started many moons ago. Your access to technology was typically the best technology that was available through work. That's different today. So the expectations of the users are very different today to where we were maybe 20 years ago.
As we said earlier, a lot of users have unique requirements, but there's some things that are across the market, across all hypermobile people, and that is access to connectivity. Almost everyone that we talk to is working in the field, and that's whether you're police, fire, ambulance, roadside assistance, anybody like that. You're often in rural areas which have less access to connectivity. You're working out in the field where there's less power available, so having things like a good battery, good connection, easily readable screens, all these things are what define the requirements for a hypermobile user.
So how important is user feedback when specifying a device?
It's fair to say the voice of the user has never been so strong. These teams of people are delivering a frontline service for their organisation, so it's really important that their feedback is built into the selection criteria of a device. I can't think of a better example of user experience as screen technology.
How does it work when it's raining? You know, we get our fair share of rain in Western Europe. Working in all different environments. That, from an engineering perspective, has been quite the challenge to sort of fix. And we're at that cusp of moving from first of all, getting the screen to operate in a rain or a wet environment with gloves, but also then how do you auto-sense that so you make the user a little bit more efficient. We're on the cusp of doing that now, started with the FZ40. So yeah, I can understand why that's so much of a challenge, Nick, yeah.
I think it's fair to say that no one understands the requirements of the job better than an end user, and those end users are almost always engaged in the core business of that organisation, whether that's fixing power cuts, fixing a car, being a first responder on the scene of an emergency. No one understands their job like those end users, and therefore their feedback is really critical, and anything you can do to make their lives a little bit easier only increases productivity over the long term.
And I don't think that used to be the case, did it, so much? It used to be, again, a long time ago, you was given one device that tried to fit all of those roles. That's not think what we're saying is that it's important now to involve the user from the outset in finding that right device for their role.
Definitely a shift we saw in recent years was that one-size-fits-all discussion. Many years ago you would have deployed the same form factor across your entire estate, but that's no longer the case.
Situation with technology now, you have different devices, different applications, different user groups, and I think as well most industry sectors see a challenge in terms of resource and availability of the right people as well. So we're getting to this situation where you've got cross-functional people that might need access to a different application or a different set of tools to be able to complete different jobs.
Okay, so lots of challenges to consider. What's the key sort of takeaway from your perspective?
To me, in the previous, IT wanted to have one device fits all, to have it easy for management. Now we want to have the perfect device for the user, which feels from an IT management perspective as if they would be all equal.
It's all about balance. Balance is everything. There's different core technologies such as screen technology, connectivity, battery performance and mobility as well. But getting the balance between those technologies is really, really important.
Exactly right. Sometimes let's take battery as an example. It's easy to put a huge battery into a device to give you very long operating times. But that's the disadvantage, is obviously introducing more weight to the device. And in a mobile device, all of these things, these balance things play off against each other. So finding that is really difficult to do.
And what does that mean from a product design perspective?
I think while there are some technologies which are going to be common across everything to do with battery life and connectivity, there's a lot of technologies which really need to be addressed by the modular options you now see in TOUGHBOOK, allowing devices to have different battery options, different storage requirements, different ports on the side. All these allow the same core device to be used in different ways and by different user personas.
What you mentioned, the interfaces, I guess that's key in what we see over the last years, right? You keep the same processing power and become very flexible in the type of interfaces you have. So you could even last a device longer because you adapt your interfaces to the future needs by just exchanging them.
Yeah, I think adaptability is key. We have instances where we've got customers still using serial ports, and hopefully they're on that transition to USB, but USB 2 or 3, USB 4, USB 5 will be coming soon. The ability to use your mobile device for a period of time is you're investing in quite expensive technology at the end of the day.
So flexibility, a big point to consider then?
Yeah, I think there's, again, balance. There's kind of the speed of consumerization. Everyone wants new and the latest and greatest, but it's trying to find the right balance between supporting all the kind of the legacy things that maybe some of our customers will have, but also giving them access to the latest and greatest technologies. It's very rarely a case where a customer of ours will deploy a device for 1 or 2 years. Typically that user will be engaging with that device for a minimum of 3, but maybe 5 years.
I think as well, even though the customer is taking a device which they deploy for 3 or 5 years, they're working on that device with equipment that's far older than that, whether you're talking police computing or whether you're talking about electrical companies and their infrastructure, anything like that. They can be using equipment which is 10, 20, 30 years old sometimes, and therefore having that functionality and that flexibility to use any kind of port or meet any kind of requirement.
Whenever you think of industry goods like train operation, minery, all of these expensive goods, we have interfaces which are 20, 30 years old, right? And we still serve with a machine which is running as fast as it could, right? I mean, same as we have machines now when we're having a renewal almost every year. And that's again through to consumerization.
And I guess that's, from our perspective as well, big difference between a B2B product and a consumer product.
Definitely. The consumer products are turning over so quickly these days, whether it's a year or two when you upgrade your mobile phone. Whereas when you're talking about a business device which is used in the field, you really don't want to be bringing users back to a central depot or changing those devices particularly often. You want them out in the field doing their core job really. And that means all too often you're talking about a 3 to 5 year life cycle for devices, really, so you can make the best out of buying a device which is rugged, super suitable for mobile usage.
Yeah. So even after all this time, the productivity of the user is still really important.
Yeah, and productivity doesn't stop from remote managing those. We need to ensure that our devices can be managed wherever they are. Our field force, they don't want to come back to the office and getting service done on their machines, right? And this is the challenge of today's world, the rollout and the maintenance of the devices out in the field without any interruption in time.
And let's talk about device performance then, John. Is that still an important factor, like processing power? Do you think that's changed much in recent years?
There's been a sort of a few peaks and troughs. So that's something that is about balance as well, because to run the latest, fastest chipsets, it needs a lot of power, so you need a good battery to power it. It generates heat. So you need to, understand which users, if you are using a product that requires what we call a fanless design. But certainly it's always been important if you are deploying technology. I think it's been mentioned already, for sort of 3, 4, 5 years into the field. You don't want to bring those devices back. You want to have a platform that's fit for purpose for running not just the applications now, but what you need to use in the future. We talked about flexibility and adaptability earlier on. So yes, it's always important. I think it just comes down to understanding what you want to do with that device, with that particular user type.
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about battery life, connectivity, user experience, and the importance of all of these things, but can you give us some real-world scenarios?
I think maybe one of the most common scenarios is to do with the switch off by mobile carriers of the 3G networks that they have in the UK. Those switch offs and moving to higher performance networks such as 4G and 5G is creating maybe smaller black spots around the country. And for people who spend their whole working day driving around through good areas and bad areas for connection, we're seeing some real problems emerge from that.
What we see is that customers who have equipped their devices with 4G interfaces, they simply stick to the device and change to the 5G interface. And 5G we see a lot in environments where customers want to have automation come to play, where they need more and more data throughput with less latency.
And when we're talking about the specialist nature of this work, can you think of any actual scenarios, like customer examples that you can give us?
Yeah, UK ambulance organisation, they're a customer that have staff, and the device being used is required to be used 24/7. Obviously battery performance is so critical for that particular user, but of course they carry so much equipment, not just a mobile IT device, they're carrying defibrillators, first aid equipment. So finding that balance between battery performance but mobility, I probably can't think of a better example than that.
I think as well, as you say about UK ambulance, but it also applies to maybe all emergency services, trying to use a mobile device which you need to keep up to date. Security patches, application updates, but then how do you tie that back to a device which has to be ready for use at any moment 24/7 if it's in an ambulance or a police car? When do you take it offline? So having a device which is always available, always on, and never needs to be returned to a depot for maintenance is critical, really.
Okay, so we've talked about some quite common IT challenges, but often from our perspective, it's quite often about really sector-specific difficulties, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Chris. Yeah, I think a great example, a recent example, is a European defence organisation all about keeping Chinooks flying in the air. It's 35-year-old equipment. Legacy connectivity to that helicopter is critical, but measuring the rotor's vibration on the aircraft, keeping them flying, that didn't exist. So using the modular port on an FZG2, we were able to create a solution for that specific customer.
Having that kind of balance between new and old is really important. Thinking about a European rail maintenance organisation, requirement for new technology, high performance, but like John said, still having the capability and the ability to communicate with some of the kind of old infrastructure systems that maybe they're left with.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about product features and what's important on the product side, but let's talk about deploying and supporting devices then in this remote.
By nature, hypermobile workers aren't in constant communication with the teams that support their IT. So we often get into the situation where you've got customers or users raising challenges on the device, but it's very important the IT staff can distinguish between fact and fiction. So one of the key challenges, how can we optimize the use of data to really understand what's going on with those mobile devices and maybe start to spot some of the challenges before it does impact the user.
I think connectivity is a great example there, Nick. With connectivity, you can't see it, touch it, feel it, taste it. Quite often, and Drew, we've had customer experiences, haven't we, in the European market where customers are unsure, but they think it's a connectivity problem. Understanding it with data that you get from the device really helps you sort of pinpoint what sort of solution you're after. Yeah, you want insight to drive, maybe a best practice or new behaviour.
It harks back to what we were saying earlier, is that hypermobile users really have some unique challenges that have to be addressed, and you can only address those if you really understand what's happening in the field. Examples where people are using device out of the field and they're getting really, really poor battery life, and it turns out it's because of a specific piece of software. But if you're office-based or only mobile-based and you have easy access to power, that wouldn't have been an issue. But because they're hypermobile and they're away from a power socket, it was a critical issue for them.
And okay, so we can get this information now, and we have that data, and we can monitor the device performance at all different levels. But what then? Like, is it about taking some form of action off the back of that?
Yeah, I think ideally it would be in a situation where you would proactively diagnose these issues. Often there's almost a trigger moment that maybe causes a specific challenge. So can we utilise data and understand what's been the trigger point that's causing the issue? So having data, you can now roll back and you can try and understand what log of events caused which particular challenge.
And that level of visibility is something that I think is new to the market in that sense, or actually being able to analyse it to that level.
It is, yeah. It's I think back to what we were saying earlier, typically MDMs in the past have been for managing the device, but you struggle to get any maybe relevant data that you can use to drive something actionable with the field. And again, we're talking about devices that aren't easily brought back to a central location. So whatever you can do remotely, keeping those devices working in the field is critical, really.
The data has always been there. You've always been able to know, as a user, I'm connected or I'm not connected, or I've got the power plugged in, or whatever. But it's bringing all that data from dozens, hundreds, thousands of devices into one portal where you can see all the data at the same time. You can look at that device in its context and really, is that normal? Is it not normal compared to everything else? That's the key bit, is having access to all that data for examination and interpreting what the results are.
Modern technology typically tends to move with trends, and if you think about demand within the mobile space, the main demand is the mobile user that we've referred to and defined earlier. You look at common or more modern tools like autopilot, for example. It's a great tool, but is it optimized for hypermobile? Well, you can only deploy a device via autopilot with connection to Wi-Fi. By definition, hypermobile users don't have access to Wi-Fi. So it's about understanding the unique challenges that the hypermobile users have and helping support our customers on a journey that kind of makes it fit for purpose as a whole solution, taking advantage of kind of the typical tools that they want to use, but combining them in a way that meets the needs of their field users.
I think, Nick, just to sort of finish on that one, maybe the utilities market, there was a specific utility customer in Europe that wanted to take advantage of autopilot. Back to what you said, again, that you couldn't deploy that over 4G or 5G, it had to be over Wi-Fi. They didn't want to bring all their users back into like a central place. And they had huge amounts of data. So, gigabytes of data, and that just wasn't really, it wouldn't have worked over that. So there's ways of sort of managing that for the hypermobile worker that's different for the usual mobile worker. I think understand that's important, isn't it?
I guess we all agree that mobility adds complexity to managing that, and what we challenge for is take off the complexity of these more mobile workflows now.
So we've talked about the state of play in the market today and some of the challenges that our customers might face, but what about the future then? What's next?
It's got to be AI. That's the hot topic, Chris. Yeah.
AI?
I think it's got to be edge.
Edge?
AI at the edge.
AI on the edge?
I mean, seriously, we are more online, always online. So we're relying on browser applications rather than application on our device. So there's more connectivity involved, and there's probably less data to be sent. That's why I think it's power on the edge.
I don't disagree with that, Torsten, but I think in the frame of hypermobile workers where there isn't always great connectivity, that's where that argument of maybe AI at the edge plays a little bit more. But I still think we're on this journey of working at what AI at the edge means and what it's going to do for our types of users.
Our customers are saving lives, they're fixing pipework, like they're doing critical things. So I think it's very interesting for them to see new technologies and new exciting technologies, but in many cases our customers are kind of like, they're often playing catch up. They may see an AI application, but have they got the absolute confidence that's going to work reliably in the field for them and it doesn't impact their kind of day-to-day jobs? I'm not quite so sure that they're at that point yet. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff, but is there something tangible that really the customer's ready to make the move with?
And I think we've got lots of examples where customers are still migrating from your traditional on-premise IT server data warehouses through to the cloud. So to go to that next level is still a little bit of a stretch at the moment, maybe.
I think that's where I see a lot of difference at the moment is customers considering how far they want to go into cloud computing. So there's a massive drive at the moment in the industry, or even in the wider IT industry, towards cloud computing and moving all applications and data out to huge data warehouses that are in the cloud. But obviously these don't work for every customer. It depends very much about the type of data you're using. If you're in the military or in the defense sector, cloud computing is probably not for you because of the data security portion of that. And obviously as well, the cloud computing requires a constant connection to the cloud to do it, or at least a regular connection. And as we've highlighted, a lot of our users really struggle with connectivity when they're out in the field.
I do like, though, Drew, this year the emergence of the AI capability chipset on the products, and some of the questions and challenges that throws up. To do AI at the edge, how are you going to learn in that environment, if you're like in a disconnected state, and wherever you learn, how would you pass that back to a central location so others can benefit? I think it throws up some other interesting challenges.
Customer device selection at the moment, I think readiness is the term that they're often using. Like they want a device that's ready for AI, they want a device that's ready for 5G. So we're having to consider all of these things in the makeup of the device. The G2, for example, are customers using 5G across the board yet? Are customers using AI? No, but they want to have the confidence if they're invested in technology that it's capable in the future of supporting those kind of things that they may see.
But I guess that's exactly what we're currently delivering, right? We're delivering devices with our partners, Microsoft, who has, and Intel, which deliver now AI capabilities on the device, on the edge, and wherever the application will reside on a central back end or on the front end. It's probably unknown for now, where does the data model best fit into, and probably it's a mixture of both, right?
It's a massive challenge because on one hand we're saying we want to support customers' legacy infrastructure and legacy applications, but at the same time we're saying we want to support their future application and their future needs. So there's a lot to take in when designing a device, and it's trying to find, again, balance between the two.
So how are Panasonic catering for that type of future innovation in the product?
It can be a tricky path to take, and again, I've said it before, it's all about the balance. Quite often our customers are not looking for that sort of bleeding edge, but working with Intel, our partner and Microsoft in that space, is aligning our sort of technology evolution with theirs. So they've got all of the benefits of the platform if and when they need to switch on the AI piece, or utilize the latest 5G technology, but at the same time do that in a something that's secure, ready for the hyperworking, hypermobile space, if you like.
I think partnerships are really important to us. If we talk, John talks about Microsoft, but partnerships with our customers as well. We've talked about the emergence or the niche use case of hypermobile. Do Microsoft truly understand? Do Intel truly understand the niche use case of our customers? I'd argue not at times. So it's really, really important that we take the message and the voice from the customer, engage with our core partners to make sure that we can deliver technology solutions that are going to work and be tried, tested and trusted.
I think that's a fair point, Nick, because that's your, if you like, your mobile user, and that's probably what Microsoft and Intel understand very well. That hypermobile user throws up a unique set of challenges that we've already talked about, that probably we have to sort of drive into that long-term evolution of the product or the solution.
And how do you see Panasonic doing that in terms of kind of collecting that market perspective from our customers? They all operate in very specialist environments, don't they? So is that just about working closely with customers to understand their needs in that area?
If we align ourselves with like the strategic direction of customers, that's really important. So what are the kind of top level challenges that they face? We talk about things like sustainability or adoption of new technology, but at the same time, we still have to remember that the people using our kit are the field workers. So we have to align and understand their daily work. So what are the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis? And that's kind of been the core of TOUGHBOOK DNA for the last 27 years, is understanding the user, understand the challenges that they face, and then bringing technology that's innovative that can help them on a day-to-day basis.
Which ended up now at we looking into adding way more services than we ever did. I mean, currently standardizing services to our customers to, beyond the hardware, serve those customers with a lot of software tools, which goes up to providing 5G networks. Because that's what the customer might need in the future to fulfill their needs of IoT, to get the services, the applications to the users in the speed and the quality of service they require.
Talk to us a bit more about 5G private campus in particular, Torsten, because that's definitely a trend that we've seen in the market in recent years.
Well, what we see is that 5G is, well, we all know on our private life that 5G is becoming very mature. Where it's not yet mature is in the B2B business. So most of our customers will have a wireless LAN system serving their mobile devices in a fixed area. And you will not be able, most likely in the near future, to serve all your new devices coming into play. These IoT devices, they're becoming more and more reality. So to serve those with low latency and higher throughput, the demand of automation is more and more coming. So means all manual work is trying to be solved with video and video analytics to optimize those processes. They require 5G, and we decided that we would be part of that so that our customer could get out of one hand the mobile device plus the network to solve and serve those devices.
So talk to us about productivity, because that's a big topic, isn't it? And obviously we would always associate that with device uptime, but device uptime's a lot more than just hardware performance, isn't it?
The user just wants a device that works. That's like as simple as it comes. I think in Panasonic's message, obviously we have industry-leading failure rates. A lot of the time in our engagements and conversations with customers now, it's the device is typically going to work, but there's going to be other things that are going to cause your user challenges and issues. They could be image related, they could be connectivity that we've talked about, they could be application. I think ultimately it's our name on the device. It's our responsibility to help encourage, engage and educate them about some of the other challenges they face, and maybe from our experience how other customers are trying to tackle some of the challenges that they see.
That's typically always the case. The user wouldn't differentiate between hardware and application. For the user, it's whatever he works with doesn't work, and he doesn't tell you it's the application, it's the machine where it's running on. So that's where we need to decide on how close can we get to our customer's application level to serve this application level as good as we can as a hardware vendor.
And I think the other interesting thing there, Torsten, is the bit that maybe IT departments or business transformation pieces are carried out in our customers. The bit that's missed sometimes, that it's sometimes not as black and white as maybe a device doesn't work or does work. Sometimes the device can become a barrier. It should be complementary to their work. It should help them do their work. A tool that makes them more optimized or efficient in doing what they do. And I think that's quite often forgotten about as well, where you give somebody something. Understanding that with data, some proactive maintenance, battery swaps, swap out, all of those types of things can help remove some of those barriers, and maybe back to user experience as well, understanding the user.
A friend of mine worked for a smart metering organisation. He had just taken a new device and he said to me, "Nick, the battery performance of the TOUGHBOOK is terrible." He didn't know that we'd just done a battery replacement. So it wasn't the battery itself, it wasn't a hardware issue, it was actually the impact that a poorly built image or maybe a heavily draining application had on the impact of the performance. But from the user's perspective, like I say, they just want the device to work, and it's a Panasonic device, and that's why he had the blame the Panasonic device.
Definitely something we see more and more, Drew, isn't it? When sort of applications are getting updated in the field and it does impact some type of performance, whether it's connectivity or battery, but it's very difficult sometimes to pinpoint exactly what it is that's causing that.
It can be very difficult to pinpoint failures when you can't put your hands on a unit to actually really investigate it yourself. So you're trying to do diagnostics over the air effectively. But also this harks back to what we were saying earlier with the importance of things like connectivity and device uptime. Because, for example, if you're trying to update an application and your device runs out of battery, you're going to have a failed upgrade there, and the device is going to be effectively useless to the user if they can't use their application. So it's really a critical point of that experience is trying to make sure the device is up all the time and that you can proactively update it and keep it working so that the user really has a seamless experience.
Okay, so each of you are working with customers, managing frontline workers each day. If you had one piece of advice for them, what would it be?
I think it would be gather and gain insights from partners that you trust. I think something at the forefront of a lot of our customers' minds at the moment is end of support, for example, on Windows 10. So how can they engage with a partner like Panasonic to understand what that future roadmap looks like and how that can make and help and impact some of the decisions they'll be making in the not too distant future.
And building on that, I think one thing I would encourage customers to think about is their update strategy. They may have a pressing reason as to why they need to deploy Windows 10 now because of application compatibility or something else, but what's their roadmap really for pushing Windows 11 onto that device later? You don't want to have to bring that device back to the depot or headquarters. You want to be able to update it in the field, and when Windows 11 is on there, what's your strategy for Windows 12 and onwards up about?
My advice would be embrace your users, look for those incremental gains using technology to innovate, because that could give you a really sort of differentiator in the market.
Trust your partner, trust your mobility expert. Don't try to solve issues where you not feel confident with. Go into communication, raise the issues you face, trying to solve them as a team, and then most likely you will get the better result for yourself and for your workers.
The hypermobile user spends a lot of time in vehicle invariably, so what types of trends do we see in that area?
I think there's two things, Chris, that are happening in the vehicle space, primarily around what we call screen mirroring, and also connectivity.
Yeah, the common denominator for all of our customers is a vehicle. That's the common thing. These teams of people are using the vehicle almost like a mobile office. Vehicle OEMs are making screens within their vehicles much bigger, bigger user interface. Our customers are looking at that and saying, can we not tap into the use of that technology to help support the people that are going to be using it every day?
And it takes away as well some of the complexity of vehicle mounting computers. So where we've been in the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years is you've got basically two options where you mount a TOUGHBOOK into the rear of the vehicle. That has some sort of challenges. Putting it into the front of the cabin, when we talk about roadside assistance, utility vehicles, etc., can be more challenging. And I think that screen mirroring takes away all those issues around airbag protection, carrying additional passengers. It just keeps the regulation much cleaner. I think that really helps us. So I think there's a lot happening in that space.
It presents an opportunity for many of our customers. Typically they all work in a vehicle. Maybe traditionally where you've had a situation where a TOUGHBOOK couldn't be docked in the front of that vehicle, utilising existing screen technology gives them the ability to share information with the user or the driver in a way that could save time for them. So imagine, for instance, a roadside assistance user may be able to be told ahead of arriving at a vehicle what the last 3 failures of a specific vehicle would be. That's a massive opportunity for our customers to save time, but at the same time it's really important that if they're going to do something like that, they need to do it in a safe way that meets all kind of safety and roadside regulation requirements.
I think that's really where the future of, should we say, the lone work in the vehicle really is going. There's a kind of vehicle integration of not just having a PC sat by itself in the cabin with some information on it for the driver. It's a connected device the whole time where you've got coverage, and it being able to relay information to the driver while they're going. Maybe some kind of AI discussion or as Nick says, what the last 3 failures are on the way to it, on the way to wherever they're going, saves time when they get there.
Some of our fire customers Drew talks about connected vehicles. Some of our fire customers have really utilised that in a successful way. So the fire appliance or the fire vehicle almost becomes a mobile hub of connectivity. So a connectivity router is positioned within that vehicle. And then when they get to the incident, it's almost like a ground station for incident control, where they can have a Wi-Fi bubble that sits around the vehicle, and then the different pieces of technology that maybe the users will be working with remain constantly connected, can get access to the information that they need, and ultimately they can respond to the incident in a better way.
So we talked about the connected vehicle there, John, and I think you mentioned that earlier on then. So talk us through what that looks like.
I think just exactly what Nick said, really. I think the ability to have the best connected, it's always that maybe a good, better, best type of scenario, and the best that you want is that always connected type of approach. The ability to throw up a Wi-Fi bubble over the vehicle could be the difference between you getting your connectivity done, because that bubble is connected to a router, and this is like an enterprise grade router, not something you would see in your house connected to your home broadband, but something that has maybe dual SIM capability. So if you're in an area where you've got one mobile operator that's better than the other, you can connect to that one to give you the best levels of connectivity. So it's all about having just the best connectivity that you possibly can in these sort of quite often difficult geographical region.
And Torsten, whenever we're talking about connectivity, even when it's linked to a vehicle, the connected vehicle, there's obviously always security implications as well that our customers need to think about before deploying that technology.
Well, obviously security is something everybody needs to look at, and there's a different way of applying security for mobile applications. Something that I wanted to add to what we all discussed is what it shows we're coming from a time where our mobile systems used to be more idle than now. So our mobile devices becoming less and less idle, and that's something we see. So the devices are more and more utilized for different type of services which had not been looked at before because of those integrations.
And I think, Torsten, you're exactly right. And I think also the comment that you made earlier around sort of IoT, you imagine the roadside assistance vehicle in the future, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, there's going to be probably tens or hundreds of devices that are still needing some sort of connectivity. And that's impossible then to put a SIM card and a if you like, a 4G, 5G module in each device. Could be diagnostic testers, etc., etc. So it's going to become, more important to have a connected vehicle that encompasses your entire sort of connectivity, maybe just not the device itself.
IoT is really, really interesting. Imagine being a utilities organisation that arrives at a wastewater treatment site, and being able to have connectivity means that you can enter that site and your device could be pre-populated with the issue that the piece of equipment is facing. Again, it's all about time and cost saving, so that's a massive, massive opportunity, a massive benefit potentially to our customers.
And the other thing there, Chris, as well, which is a point to the future again, is all of that data being collected. Somebody's got to sit down and look at that data, and that's where maybe that AI piece comes to the play. So it will help us, make sense of all of the data that we're collecting.
So AI at the edge, actually closer than many might have you believe then, Torsten.
Yeah, I guess we're coming to the round where we see it's not one piece which fits a total new solution. It's really some pieces put together, and over time it will evolve in a new system, which we don't know yet how it looks, but we have a good idea what elements will drive this new system.
All that data that we have at the moment is already present for most organizations. They already have the data that they need to do the jobs with. What they are lacking is having it all at hand and having it in front of them, and in a way that makes sense and has been interpreted and examined to give some actual useful feedback and useful next actions. And that's where AI will come into it in terms of interpreting that data and being able to say to an end user, the most common failure here is this component, and you should check this first, this second, this third, all so that you can save time and get that fixed and online again as quickly as possible.
That sounds like another benefit for AI at the edge then, John.
So another AI benefit could be in terms of helping us with the aging workforce. Lots of organisations across all sectors are struggling with people with all the experience that have left their companies, and maybe some of those gaps could be sort of backfilled with using AI to provide some of that knowledge and experience.
Yeah, AI and modern technology tools I think can be quite scary because it's often seen as maybe something that's going to disrupt or displace or replace some of the skills that organisations have. I take my mind back to an example with a roadside assistance organisation who had used a thermal camera integrated with their TOUGHBOOK G2 device. I had kind of expected them to be in a situation where they would be able to quantify the amount of time saved by utilising the technology. But actually what it did is it supplemented and supported the patrol engineer in actually educating their customer about what had actually happened in terms of the fault of their vehicle. So I think that was really powerful that the technology is supportive of the experience that an organisation have rather than potentially displacing it.
So you improving customer satisfaction as well, Nick, yeah? So not just all about, well, it saves 10 seconds, but the customer's more well informed. I guess that could be a benefit if you're taking me through maybe an episode of work that's been done on the vehicle and there's maybe a charge to be paid at the end of it. Explaining that through to the end point would be beneficial, yeah?
Yeah, like operational efficiency, of course, is forefront of everyone's minds, but what we often forget is that there are people that are our users are typically facing in a day-to-day environment. Everything's becoming more competitive, so customer experience really does become more and more important. So our customers need to start looking at ways how they can really improve their customers' experience, and often technology can be used to do that.
We've talked a little bit about support tools available to our customers. What does that look like in the modern era today? What should our customers expect to see from a mobility partner in that space?
I guess all we said earlier, we are now capable of doing some more predictive maintenance, so to explain what we believe will happen next by knowing the devices, by knowing the device status just better.
We're only getting started here, but on the predictive side, last year we launched Protect Plus. That's a maintenance service where we offer battery confidence. Essentially, but what battery confidence does is it predicts when a battery will fail, and Panasonic will proactively replace a battery for an end user when it falls below 50%.
Building on top of that, Panasonic as a mobility partner are there really to support a customer with its requirements to look after the niche hypermobile users. Things like making sure deployment works first time, every time, making sure their build is optimized and appropriate for that environment that they're working in, so that they have the best possible battery life, they have the best possible experience, best possible connectivity.
Okay, so we've talked then about the need to optimize even the build that sits on that mobile device, but surely all builds for a customer's devices are the same, right?
No, it's simply not the case. We've talked about different personas, different requirements that different hypermobile users face, and that results in different builds. Going back to kind of the Panasonic support, nobody understands our hardware better than we do, and that's why we're kind of prime position to be able to support a customer in terms of creating, developing and managing that build.
We've seen experiences such as customers with a misconfigured screensaver that was from their office estate being put onto hypermobile devices and therefore having a battery life of a quarter of what it should have been. Such a simple thing can have such a profound impact on an end user's experience. Battery confidence is a proactive maintenance piece for our battery. This makes sure that the device is continuously monitoring the battery, and as soon as it falls below a threshold, then we send out a new battery to the end user so that they can replace it and get back to the full device experience that they're expecting.
What would you say is a common mistake we see organisations make, John?
People choosing the wrong device. I think you've got to make sure that whatever device you select, that it's fit for purpose for the job that it's intended to do.
And I think it's even worse because a number of customers come in and they believe they know already exactly what they need without going into the communication with their users and with us as the mobile expert. Start the education first, start the analysis first, and then come to probably not on one device but multiple devices for the user profile.
Okay, any other mistakes that we see that are quite common in the market?
Not truly understanding the user. I think it's common to think that you understand the user, but actually spending time in their shoes I think is critically important. It covers things like the device, the application, the challenges that they face. I think only really when you spent significant time with the user you can do so. Some of our organisations that we work with, or some of our customers, have the benefit of having people working in their business that have performed the role of the user, but not all organisations have that luxury.
I think the thing I would say is considering what the future roadmap or strategy is for that device. All too often see examples where customers have rolled out devices for 1, 2, 3, 4 years based upon what their requirements are at that specific point in time when they deployed it. And almost always we see extra load or extra requirements placed on that device midway through its life cycle. So considering what you're going to do in the future, how do you push it out, that update? How do you see that device being used maybe 1, 2, 3 years down the line, and what can you proactively do to make yourself ready for that change?
A rugged case is often misunderstood. It might help you if you drop the product. It doesn't give you things like screen readability, screen visibility outdoors, touchscreen capability in the wet, legacy port connectors, great, improve your connectivity in the way that a TOUGHBOOK might. So that's what I mean by understanding what fit for purpose is. It's too easy just to choose something based, particularly today's world, based on price, and not having something that is really up for fit for purpose and what you want it to do.
I like to take it simple. What we do with our devices is designed for robustness. It's not to put a cover around.
I think ruggedness is not just about drop. It's about drop and vibration and heat. Yeah. Wherever you go in Europe, there'll be times where in the middle of summer it's 30, 40 degrees, and in the times of winter it could be 0, -10, and in some places -20. These are enormous temperature swings, making sure things like the ports, you can plug and unplug things into there several times per day for years long. These are all things that go into making a rugged device, and it's not just about putting it inside a case.
We've often seen customers rush the decision-making process when selecting a new device. I think it's really important that they put any device that could be considered as a tool for use on critical frontline applications, for them to really put that device through its paces as it would be if their user adopted that technology.
IT departments often have the desire to have one device fits for all, but we just learned that there's a big difference between the mobile worker and the hyper worker in the field being mobile. What I would wish to see that there is a strong need to reflect that for their users and for their user experience in the field.
Thanks for listening. We hope that was helpful. If you'd like to continue the conversation, then please don't hesitate to get in contact.